Hi, grade sevens. It's Miss Scott here. Today I'm going to read Brothers by David A. Robertson. Aiden enjoyed drives like this one, not city drives, on the highway toward anywhere far away. Where he and his foster parents were going now, there wasn't much to look at, not at first, but it wasn't all about scenery. It was being away from so many cars and traffic lights and signs and houses and people. They were headed south, then southeast, on their way to Michigan. Until Wisconsin, the land was flat and wide, the sky endless and enormous, as ceaseless as the prairies. It was 16 hours from Winnipeg to Ann Arbor. The flatlands and open skies would accompany them for at least 7 hours of the trip. Aiden did only a handful of things during the long drive, which was broken up by bathroom and gas stops and a quick hotel stay about halfway to Michigan. The one constant was reading. He had a stack of books at his side, along with a water bottle and a bag of snacks his foster mother had prepared for him. His foster parents had their own water and snacks at the front of the car. The thing he did during the first hours of the drive each day lasted only as long as his device's battery life. He had been permitted to download a few games on his iPod and to play those games for as long as his battery lasted. This was how his foster mother monitored his screen time. He started each day with the beautiful sight of 100% battery life, but once the iPod was dead, it was dead. There was no going back. Aiden thought it was unfair. This meant that for a good 5 hours on the first day, all he had to do was read, because after not too long, the prairies were boring, even the sky. You could only make clouds into so many shapes. But once the car got deeper into Wisconsin on the second day, as the prairies were left behind, it was like they were in a whole other world. There were actually things to look at, like the land had contours, hills. There were more trees, fewer farmers' fields. So during the last hours, even before his iPod died, Aiden traded time between staring at the screen or, later, the page of a book and staring out the window. And his mind wandered while he took in the pretty new landscape. Aiden's foster parents, who were white, were taking him to a big powwow, and he kept thinking about the life he'd missed, but still might be able to find. A few months earlier, he'd been connected with his birth parents. They lived in a Cree community in northern Manitoba. Aiden found out that he had an older brother named Vince, too. They messaged together for weeks, and then one day, Vince invited Aiden and his foster parents to a place they were headed now. Along with being a computer nerd, a fellow sci-fi enthusiast, and lover of all things 80s and 90s, Vince was an accomplished grass dancer. This was going to be Aiden's first powwow. He'd only just started to take lessons in the city after finding out Vince danced, and had only seen the different kinds of beautiful dances, the vibrant clothing worn by Indigenous people while performing them on YouTube. Vince said that he'd taken part in so many powwows that he couldn't even count them. He was 17, 5 years older than Aiden. Vince had told Aiden lots of things over texts about their home community, their birth parents, what life was like there, and dancing. Aiden was most excited to see his older brother. They finally pulled up to their hotel. It was late in the afternoon, and everybody was tired. They checked in, ate a quick meal in the restaurant, and turned in for the night. Aiden's foster parents were asleep almost as soon as their heads hit the pillows, but Aiden had trouble falling asleep. He was really tired, but kept thinking about the same things he thought about in the car. They weren't driving anymore, but his mind was still racing. He had a new window to stare out of, the hotel room window, where even though it was night, the streetlights outside painted the curtains orange. Aiden stared until his body and his brain gave up, and his thoughts turned into dreams. The next morning, Aiden devoured a free continental breakfast in the hotel lobby, the good kind. There was the regular bagels, bread, cereal, bananas, apples, oatmeal, but there were also waffles, omelets, and sausages, and nothing was safe from his stomach. While eating, his foster parents described it as inhaling, not eating. He noticed how many Indigenous people were lining up to get food and sitting at the tables. This must have been where people from out of town going to the powwow were staying. Aiden had never been around so many people like him before. There weren't a lot of Indigenous people in his community or at his school. He started to imagine them later on in the day when many of the breakfast goers would be in regalia. Aiden hadn't brought anything special to the powwow himself. He never owned regalia. When he took lessons, it was just in regular clothes. He'd asked his foster parents to buy him an outfit, or what else is he going to dance in? But they flatly refused, telling him only, cryptically, that he wouldn't need anything from them. So after breakfast, he put on sweats and a sweater, and they were off from the hotel to the powwow. There was a parade of cars heading from the hotel and around the outskirts of the city toward the powwow, like they were in some kind of procession. Aiden spent the drive checking out license plates to see where everybody was from, because the scenery wasn't all that exciting. There were churches and schools and farmland on the left, nothing different than in the country around Winnipeg, and more of the same on the right. Nothing much changed until they drove through a residential area before pulling up in front of Skyline High School, where the powwow was taking place. It was a huge school, a building constructed out of metal and glass and brick, and Aiden couldn't think of a bigger school in Winnipeg. But still, as he looked around and all he could see were the parking lot and the school, something didn't seem right. Hey, aren't we going to the powwow? Aiden asked. We are, his foster father said. This is where it is. Is there a field behind the school or something? With such a big school, he supposed that it wouldn't be surprising if the school had an equally big field. The only times he'd been to the States, it had been to play hockey, and the hockey arenas were all supersized too. No, Aiden, his foster mother said. The powwow's inside the school, in the gym. Inside the school? Aiden repeated. That didn't sound right at all. All the powwow videos he'd seen were in fields, not in gyms. He was in the gymnasium almost every day for phys ed, for basketball, for volleyball, for beep tests, floor hockey, ultimate, frisbee, all those things, but not powwow dancing. They had arrived with lots of time before the grand entry at noon, so after going through the admission gate, they decided to walk around the vendor floor to see all the things that people had for sale. When am I supposed to dance? Aiden asked as they walked from the front of the school to the back where the vendors were. There were 2 times for intertribal dancing on the first day of the powwow. One started right after the grand entry, and Aiden did not want to dance that early. He was already nervous and was convinced that if he had to dance in front of all the people in the gym right away, the big breakfast he'd eaten wouldn't stay in his stomach for long. His foster mother looked sympathetic, probably because Aiden looked as sick as he felt. At 1:30 p.m., Aiden's heart started to thump. He checked his iPod for the time. That's right after the grand entry. Yeah, but the grand entry takes a long time. It starts at noon. You won't be so worried. Give it time, she said. Plus, going first, it's like ripping off the bandage, his foster father said. You're telling me 2 different things, Aiden said. Aiden, she said, look, once it's over, you can just relax. I'm not relaxed. I know you're not, but Vince will be in the grand entry, so you can watch for him from the stands, his foster father added. That'll help pass the time. Oh, wait. Stop trying to make me feel better. You guys suck at it. I thought you wanted to come, his foster mother said. I did. I do. It's just... Aiden took a deep breath. He'd seen the videos of grand entries too. They were long and looked cool. There was a drum group playing songs, flags at the front, and so many dancers after that. So many dancers in so many different types of regalia. Finding Vince among the dancers and all those colorful outfits would be like playing Where's Waldo. So maybe his foster father was right. Just watching for Vince in the stands, trying to spot him might be fun and a good distraction. And his foster father wasn't always the best judge of what was fun. In the car, he wanted to play I Spy with Aiden. That was early on in the trip. There was so much of the same thing on the prairies and no colors that it would have been super boring. This would be at least more fun than that. The vendor floor felt like an event all on its own. Aiden had been to career fairs before, with big rooms filled with lots of tables arranged in what felt like a maze. This room was like that. There were great tables side by side, aligned in row after row, and he and his foster parents walked along the side of the vendor floor. The rows looked like they went on forever. With all the tables and all the vendors selling their merchandise at those tables, there were so many different things to look at. There were tables with bracelets and necklaces and dream catchers. There were tables with clothes like sweaters and shirts and vests and jackets. There was a dog modeling a shirt that read Ancestor approved. There were pendants and blankets and staffs and hats and masks, and it all made Aidan feel dizzy. What he noticed most of all were the beads on almost every table, and he thought as they walked by after table that there were probably as many beads in the rooms as there were stars in the sky. There was one table near the end of their long zigzag trip through the vendor floor on the way to the gymnasium that Aidan stopped at. Before then, he just window shopped like you do at the mall and slowed down once because he came across a big group in the aisle. Elders walking with a young woman, a middle aged guy, and a kid. The table he stopped at was full of regalia, the same sort of outfits he saw on YouTube, and, in particular, for the dance he was learning to do, the dance Vince did, the grass dance. The regalia for grass dancers was different because it didn't have feathers. Instead, the outfits were bright and colorful, with fringes made of yarn or ribbons. Aidan looked over at the outfits on display at the table until he found one that he thought was perfect. One that he might even dance in, no matter who was watching him, no matter how shy he felt. He picked it up and turned it around in his hands, admiring the yellows and blues and greens and reds. His foster parents had given him money to buy something on the vendor floor, and this was the only thing that he wanted. Can I get this? He asked. Oh, his foster mother sighed and shook her head. Do you know how expensive these are? His foster father asked him what felt like rhetorically. Aidan really didn't know. He hadn't priced out the regalia on the internet, just looked at the dances and the outfits, and he hadn't looked at pricing here either. We gave you enough for maybe one of those dream catchers, Aidan. We just don't have the money for that. What am I supposed to dance in? These sweats? Aidan asked. I'm sure we can figure something out, his foster mother said. Like what? You just never know, was all his foster father said. Aidan looked at the price then, and that too made him feel nauseated. They were right, but he was still furious. All that practicing and nothing to wear. He put the regalia back on the table and stormed off towards the gym. I'm not dancing, he shouted en route with his foster parents trailing behind him. As mad as he was, Aidan felt confident in this decision. He might not have even danced in the beautiful outfit he'd picked out. Now, he wasn't going to dance at all. Sitting in the stands suited him just fine. Aidan forgot how mad he was for a moment when he walked into the gym just before noon. The stands, which had been pulled out from the sides of the gym, were packed. It was like there was a big basketball game happening. He'd never considered powwows a spectator sport, but he guessed he watched tons of them on YouTube over the past month, and not because anybody made him. Wouldn't it be even better in person? Do you want to sit? His foster father asked. At his voice, Aidan remembered that he was mad. Begrudgingly, arms crossed, he followed his foster parents up to the stands to the one of the few spots available. There were people from all cultural backgrounds in the stands. It wasn't just an Indigenous event for an Indigenous crowd. Aidan people watched while everybody waited for the grand entry to begin. There was a hum of excitement in the crowd. There were even people selling stuff here, away from the vendor floor. He could see a few musicians hawking their CDs, and in a sectioned off area right near Aidan, there was a girl about his age and a woman. The girl was selling raffle tickets, and it didn't take long to see what they were raffling off: a beautiful turquoise belt buckle and a blue shawl with an intricate yellow ribbon work. The belt buckle was all kinds of awesome. Aidan didn't even have a belt for a buckle. He just wanted to put it on a shelf in his bedroom beside his Star Wars action figures. Before the girl and woman approached him, he decided to buy a ticket. He knew he could afford that, at least. The girl and woman were a team. Mabel, Aidan heard the woman introduce herself, concentrated on his foster parents, gave them what she said was a mental health screening. The girl, who looked about 12 like Aidan, sat beside him. Hey, she said, I'm Maggie. I'm Aidan, he said. Where are you from? Who's your family? She asked. Winnipeg, and he pointed out his parents to indicate his family, but my brother's in the grand entry. No, I mean your home community. Like, where are you from? What tribe? Oh, Cree. He felt flushed. He never told anybody at the school that he was First Nations. And my brother, my family, is from the Norway House Cree Nation. Cool, she said. What about you? Cherokee, she said. Not the Jeep. Funny. So do you want to buy a ticket? Yeah, for the buckle, please. It's awesome. Aiden bought a raffle ticket, and the kids waited while Mabel finished doing her screening with his foster parents. When they were done, Maggie and Mabel kept moving through the crowd. See you around, Aiden, Maggie said before leaving. Yeah, see you. Not long after Aiden had bought the raffle ticket, the grand entry started, and the crowd, which had been murmuring constantly like white noise, settled down. The drum pounded like a heartbeat, breaking the silence with 3 heavy thuds. Aiden could feel it resonate through the room, right through his feet and up across the rest of his body. Then, with a steady beat and singing, the grand entry began. An announcer named Sheldon Sundown, over the rhythmic song that Aiden could feel in his chest, started telling the crowd who was coming in. But Aiden, rather than to try to listen to Sheldon over the beat of the drum and the power of the singers, just watched. The Eagle staff came in first, and after that, a series of flags, followed by dignitaries and elders. Everybody's feet were shuffling to the song, and even the oldest elder showed a well-timed movement. The youngest dancers were really moving, dancing like they were already involved in the competitions. When the grass dancers stepped onto the waxed hardwood floor, Aiden paid special attention to them, appreciating how intricate and colorful their outfits were, and laminating that he hadn't gotten to buy regalia like theirs. The delicate beadwork that must have been taken weeks, the ribbon that hung and swayed in the air as though caught in a breeze, and how even the headbands were amazing. In the middle of this line of dancers, Aiden caught eyes with Vince. Aiden waved. Vince waved back without breaking stride. They both smiled broadly at each other. Just dancing in the line, he looked better than Aiden had ever danced in the lessons that he'd been taking when he felt brave enough to actually try and not stand at the side. Vince looked powerful and beautiful and confident. How was Aiden going to look in his baggy, viciously ugly gray sweats in the middle of the gym with everybody staring at him? Before they could do much more than wave at each other, Vince had moved on. More dancers kept coming in with the grand entry, and Aiden felt alone. More than that, as time went on, he felt panicked. His pulse was racing, and he felt sweaty and shaky. He could hear his foster mother telling him that he was supposed to dance right after the grand entry. No way. I've got to go to the bathroom, he said. You don't really have to go to the bathroom, do you? His foster father asked. Yeah, I do. It's okay to be nervous, his foster mother said. Really, I know this is difficult and weird, but we know how hard you've been working and you'll do really great, his foster father said. I told you, said Aiden as he walked away. I'm not dancing. He didn't go to the bathroom at all. Instead, he found a good place to hide until the intertribal dance took place. He missed his turn, but he wouldn't embarrass himself. Some Cree kid who never really been or felt Cree, trying to act Cree in front of a million people, that was how Aiden felt. There was nobody else under the stands, just some litter that had fallen through the cracks, drink cups and chip bags and things like that. Aiden found a spot in the middle of an empty space where he'd be out of sight but would still see some of the grand entry and could feel the song through his body. He did like that feeling. It made him feel less panicked, like the drums were working hard to keep his heartbeat steady. Aiden figured that he'd only have to wait until the intertribal dance started, until it was too late for him to join in. Then he'd return to the stands, say he got lost or something. The school was big. Getting lost would be easy. And, oh well, they would just have to watch for the rest of the time and then have supper with Vince later. The grand entry gave way to a welcome address, and Aiden kept hiding. It was just after 1 p.m., and there wasn't much to see now, so he turned around, sat on the floor, and buried his head in his hands and waited. Tansy, a voice said, not more than a few minutes after he made like an ostrich. Aiden felt a nudge on his shoulder. He looked up to find Vince standing over him, his regalia still on, a suit bag slung over his shoulder. Hey, Aiden stood. They texted almost every day, video chatted too, but this was the first time he's seen Vince face to face and up close. That's hi in Cree, Vince said. Tansy. Yeah, I figured. How's it going? Vince gave Aiden a hug, patting him on the back. It's really good to see you. You too, Aiden said. How'd you? He looked around at the barren space underneath the stands. Find me. I went up here to see you, and your foster parents said that they saw you duck under here. Oh, they did? Stage fright? I don't know, Aiden said. I guess. What else do you guess? It's just, I thought when I came here, maybe I'd feel more at home or something, but I feel just as different here as I do in the school in Winnipeg. It's like I don't belong. What do you mean you feel different? What's wrong with that? I just want to feel like I belong. But Aiden, you do belong, and everybody's different. It's not on you to feel the same. It's on others to accept you because you're not. Vince said, it's on you to be okay with being different. That's super confusing, Aiden said. We're all a community. That's what I mean. And everybody's here from all over, and they all come together to do this as a big family. I just want to see my real family. Me too, Vince said. But you'll find out if you keep coming to things like this that your family's even bigger than you think. What about them? Your foster parents? Yeah, they're family too, aren't they? They hooked us up together, right? They'd be welcome in our circle. Aiden felt the anger pressing into his chest again. Maybe, but they wouldn't even get me an outfit to dance in. That's why I'm hiding. They didn't get you an outfit. Vince brought out the suit bag he'd been carrying over his shoulder because they knew I was going to give you this. Vince handed Aiden the suit bag. Aiden just stared at it at first like the gift was in the bag. Well, go ahead and open it, Vince laughed. Aiden unzipped the bag to reveal a grass dance outfit. It was bright lime green with blue, black, green, red, orange, and yellow ribbons connected to the arms, legs, and chest. On the legs and arms and chest were designs that looked like flames. They were outlined in black and layered with colors, orange, then yellow, then red at the center of each design. That's amazing, Aiden said. The flames are so cool. Look closer at them, Vince said. They look like flames, but they're animals. Aiden did look closer and saw that Vince was right. He could see an eagle on each leg, its wings rising upward and turning into flames. On the chest, the flames were squirrels, Aiden thought, the tails becoming flames, like the eagle's wings. Is it really for me? Aiden asked. I mean, it's too small for me, Vince said. Yeah, of course it's for you, brother. The drums, which had fallen silent since the grand entry had ended, started up again. That's us, Vince said. Minutes later, Vince and Aiden were standing in the middle of the gym, Aiden's feet pressed against the hardwood floor. In the middle of the dancers, in the middle of the huge crowd of onlookers, Aiden felt like everybody was watching him. He was nervous, but with the regalia on that Vince had gifted him, he was proud too. The song was playing, and Vince was moving his feet, trying to encourage Aiden into the movement. Come on, Vince said, you can do it. This is where you should be. Trust me. Where he should be. He looked into the stands at the crowd and found his foster mother and father. Then he kept moving his gaze closer and closer until he found himself scanning the gym floor carefully, just like when he'd stared out the window of the car. This would have been the best view. Vince was right. All the outfits were so different, from one dancer to the next, and even their movements were different. Each person danced to the song in their own way, with their own passion, even though it was the same song. They were a big community, and each one of them in the community was their own person. They dipped and swayed and moved to the song, dancing with grace and power and pride. Maybe after all, this was somewhere he could belong. Maybe it was somewhere he did belong. He looked at Vince, the brother he just met, and saw him moving more now, his legs stomping on the ground, then rising, his heels kicking back into the air, his body lunging and straightening, his arms keeping balance, extending out from his body. Aiden started to move his feet, then his knees, and then his body. Aiden started to dance.